this time right.
You ask guests to briefly introduce
Editor of
themselves.
Food Tank. And I'm so excited to be here with this panel of incredible women. Welcome, thank you. Just in time. So, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, will announce new climate disclosure rules for businesses on Monday, just a few days from now. The last time the SEC addressed this was in 2010, and we all know that a lot has changed in our understanding of the climate crisis since then, as well as ESG and sustainability. We're here to talk about, first of all, what do these acronyms even mean? What is ESG? What is the SEC, et cetera, and why does it all matter to both businesses and just regular eaters? So, to start off, Jillian.
Hello.
Hello. Well, first I'll introduce the panel. Jillian Seaman is the Vice President of Sustainability at Ketchum. And then we have Claire England, partner of the Food and AgTech Fund at Portfolia. And finally, we have Elisa Sipulveda. Am I getting that correct? Sepulveda. Entrepreneur in residence at Math Ventures Partners. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I thank you so much, Emily, for moderating this discussion. And thank you, ladies, for being part of such a critical discussion that I don't think we talk enough about. I'm Jillian Seaman. Like she said, I'm the Vice President of Sustainability at Ketchum. I have a very interesting background. I was at the USDA, at the U.S. Department of Agriculture for 8 years under the Obama administration. I was the Chief of Staff for Civil Rights, working on many different issues from litigation with black farmers and farmers of color to sustainability and working on two different farm bills. How I'm in PR, it's a great question that people ask me all the time. I think it's really important to be able to work with brands talking about sustainability. I am a person who, in my life, and this is a very different approach that I take that many people don't in terms of sustainability and ESG. With all of the work that I do, I lead with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's been my life, it's been my truth, it's what I do, and I think if there are any brands that I work with and across the board, that is how I really lead. So sustainability means so much to me. Having this conversation around ESGs is really important, and I will hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Great. Welcome, everyone. I'm Claire England. As we've already said our names, so I'll repeat that again. I am so pleased to be here to talk with you about ESG today and with these amazing ladies. Similarly, my focus for many years has been on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in startups and in venture capital. So it means the world to me. I've worked really hard to take a large investing community from 4% women to 30% women investors.
Yes.
And I'm thanks. And I'm working with Portfolia, where we are seeking to activate women into the asset class of startup investing and venture capital. We are all about funding diverse and sustainable companies in our Food and AgTech Fund, and I look forward to more discussion today.
Hi, I'm Elisa Sipulveda. I am an entrepreneur in residence with Math Venture Partners. We are a venture capital fund based out of Chicago, and we focus on software. Personally, as a first-generation American, I'm Cuban, Puerto Rican. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been very important to me and something that I've advocated for as a community leader in this Austin startup community. So one of the focuses that I have for my personal investment thesis is around ESG. So how do we figure out, as both consumers and businesses, whether we're having that environmental and social impact?
Thank you, guys. So we have a fairly short panel, and to start out very briefly, just for those who might not know, what is ESG? Jillian.
ESG, so environmental social governance. So environment. So what are companies doing right now that is affecting the environment, climate change? What are they actually doing in terms of greenhouse gas emissions to actually have their carbon footprint looked at in a much greater light? Social. Social is what are they doing in terms of societal changes? And that means what are they doing in terms of communities of color in the LGBTQAI community? What are they doing in terms of women? We need to look at those standards. And there's been a rise in the S. I'm sure, ladies, you know, there's been a rise in social because of everything that has happened in the world. So we, you know, it's great to talk about social. And then there's governance. What are we doing on a larger scale in terms of reputation building, in terms of boards at these brands and at these companies? What do these boards look like? How diverse are they? And what sort of impact are they having? So environmental, social, governance, ESG.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I will say I'm very much on the S and G side of those, even though we're doing a lot with climate tech, with food and ag. Governance, to me, with startups is absolutely critical for their future success. I've seen startups without a board or without any kind of official board at the seed and even into raising their Series A, and that is not a good way to govern as a startup. You need to surround yourself with experts who can help you govern the company in an appropriate way and be successful.
Absolutely. I'd actually love to hear from any and or all of you about how you think, we were speaking earlier before the panel, just about terms like sustainability, ESG could get kind of watered down as they become more buzzwords in the industry, a little bit greenwashed. How can we hold the industry accountable to make sure that these pledges actually happen and they're not just companies making pledges?
Well, I think I'll start. I will say that sustainability means something different to everybody. And that's personally, that's with companies, that's with brands, it's across the board. What sustainability means to me probably doesn't mean the same to you. And that's okay. But what we're seeing is sustainability commitments happening in brands across the board. But we as consumers need to hold these brands accountable for their commitments. ESG does a little bit, their reporting is a little bit different. The structure is different. So when you talk about environmental social governance, that reporting is different than what a sustainability report is. A sustainability report is literally a brand putting out what they think sustainability means to them and how their consumer views them.
Claire, you work a lot with companies to increase their transparency, and this seems related. An important component of this to hold people accountable is maintaining transparency. So when you're helping to build companies, how do you advise they do that?
Well, first of all, I think it's incredibly important for a founder to think from the very first day about culture for their company. And culture to me is about sustainability and DEI and governance and being incredibly transparent both with your investors, your team, and your potential customers about what you're trying to achieve, how you're achieving it. Some of that may involve some data, some reporting, which I think is always a good thing, but the transparency is absolutely required at the startup level for founders, especially working with investors. It couldn't be more key. I've had experiences where a founder or a founding team was not transparent, and we found out about it in the diligence process, and we were done. We were out. And I think it's a really bad idea to go down that road of starting a company without intending to be completely open and transparent and forthcoming with all of your stakeholders.
Absolutely. Elisa, I'd love to turn to you specifically about the S in ESG, because I know you work a lot with entrepreneurs, particularly in underserved communities.
Absolutely, yes. So this is where I think one of the most exciting pieces of innovation is going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years. And we're seeing it right now, right? There are lots of companies that are out there that are starting to help larger organizations and smaller organizations report on the diversity in their recruitment pipelines, the diversity that's sitting within their ranks, the diversity of their pipeline to promote to executive, the diversity of who's on their board. So what I'm most excited about in the whole ESG space is the ability for companies, both large and small, and people who are financing companies like both Claire and I, to have a clear understanding of what social impact our portfolio companies are having on the world, whether they are a two-person startup or they have grown to the point where they have hundreds and hundreds of employees.
And I'll throw a little bit of a soapbox out there. Social impact in venture capital does not mean not making money.
Yes, that's true. You can make a lot of money and be a social impact business.
What's incredible to me about traditional venture capital, especially in the Valley and some of the larger firms, is that they think of impact investing as not seeking to make returns. And you can absolutely build a company that is focused on ESG and DEI and all of the acronyms that are important to us all while making money. And making money for your stakeholders, making great products for your customers. And I think that that's something that we lose sight of sometimes in venture capital in particular. It's incredibly important that we remind ourselves that we can do good in this world while making money. Do good and do well.
Absolutely. I love that. And I'd love to hear from all of you about how you see business models changing with this heavier focus on ESG.
Well, I think we're in an ever-changing climate, right? And I use that word strategically because we're in a climate crisis right now. And I really want to focus on the E part. I know we started on the S. But I mean, even at South by Southwest, we've talked a lot, especially at the Future of Food, about climate change. But what is that going to mean for brands? What is that going to mean for companies? And, you know, looking a little bit forward, and, you know, my life has really been in agriculture. And as I know I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but looking at the 2023 Farm Bill, we look at sustainability a little bit differently. As we get into next year, we're going to start seeing words like climate friendly in the Farm Bill and maybe regenerative. But what does that actually mean? How much greenhouse gas emissions are these brands actually cutting? What does their supply chain look like? Everything from the environmental benefits to the social aspects, and also to the governance part. What are they doing in terms of diversifying their supply chain, their board, just really across their entire portfolio. So I think we really need to start looking at environment, and I think we are seeing that. I don't know if y'all are seeing that, but I'm definitely seeing that in brands around climate change specifically and what it means for the future. Because we all want to live on a healthier planet. How are we going to get there, especially with these huge brands making commitments, but we have to hold their feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm. I'll add that I think from the business model perspective, there was the rise of the BCorps in the last decade or so, last 2 decades. And we hear a lot about double and triple bottom line companies. That should not be the exception. There's no reason why we can't build C Corps that are focused on all of the things we're talking about today. And it takes commitment by the CEO, the founders, the board, but it's entirely possible, and it should be done if for no other reason than selfishly the millennials, the Zoomers care about these topics, and they're going to pay their wallet to the companies that are focused on these issues.
That's absolutely true. Where I'm seeing a lot of innovation right now, look, we're consumers. Yes, we all need things like toothpaste and toothbrushes, but you can make changes in these large organizations by demanding more transparency around their environmental and social impact. I'm seeing a ton of innovation that's really exciting on the software side of companies that are starting to compile this data for consumer companies so that when you're shopping as a consumer, you can start to see the environmental impact of that little compact that you got at the store. So keep demanding this from the brands that you know and love, because that's what's going to help continue to drive the change.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear if you have an example or a couple examples of people who are actually doing this, actually driving forward with the change. Who's leading the pack here?
We have a portfolio company called the Mentor Method. The CEO is Janice Omedeki. Yes, we love Janice. She's great. So she started her company focused more on the social impact. So it is a B2B SaaS company that helps connect entry-level talent to mentors within large organizations. If you've ever worked at a Fortune 500 company, I know I have, they're really difficult to navigate, especially if you're coming in as an underserved group. And this software helps facilitate and create stronger relationships, which improves succession planning, it improves retention, and it improves engagement. So definitely one of the hot companies to look for in our portfolio.
And I can add from our portfolio, actually, our very first investment was into the Series B of Full Harvest. And for those of you who don't know it, they're attacking one of the most important issues in climate change, and that is food waste. And the fact that they're tackling that in the way that they are, they're having a lot of success, and their CEO is just a phenomenal leader. She happens to be a woman, but she's just a phenomenal leader, full stop.
I love it.
And I would just say, like, Kroger, Denise had been on a couple of panels. Look at what Denise and Kroger are doing in terms of food waste.
Absolutely. So we only have a few minutes left, but I'd love to hear, we hear a lot of disempowering narratives surrounding this, of coming out of the mainstream kind of dialogue. A lot of people see regulatory changes as too little too late, and a lot of people are very pessimistic about this issue. So I'd love to hear what makes each of you feel hopeful that we'll reach the transformational change that we need in this space.
What makes me feel hopeful is all of the people that are here today and seeing, I have niece and nephews that are all Gen Z, and they're looking for the same things that we're demanding. I'm an old millennial, so that we're demanding as older millennials. I've switched all of the brands that I work with to be clean beauty. I research all of the products that I use in my house to make sure that they have a low impact on the environment to the best of my ability. I think we have so much power as consumers, and we don't think that because, again, there are thousands of us buying hair ties or, dish soap. But if you demand this of these large organizations, it's going to make a change.
I'll just say the kids are all right. These next generations, I'm very impressed. I have 3 nieces. I'm just astounded by their commitment to social impact, their commitment to the environment, their commitment to diversity. And I think that's generally true across these up-and-coming generations. I hope that Gen X, my generation, can also make a big difference and an impact. We have to work around at times the political scene and government, but we can make that happen ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm a little on edge about this question because I've seen it not work, and I've been disappointed so many times. Yeah. And as a woman of color, and I think in rooms where people aren't represented, that there isn't representation, sometimes it's really hard to be in those rooms. But then I get hopeful because I work with brands and I work with organizations that are committed. They're committed to the environment. They're committed to social causes. They're committed to the governance of what they're doing. And I look at them and I say, maybe you can make a change. You have millions of consumers, and you actually are going to sit in this room and listen. And I think that's the first step, is listening, and being able to work with people and be in a space where people are willing to listen to you. I think that's the first step. And that is what is making me hopeful and keeping me going, to be honest. So, and I think we need to do more of that. I think we need to listen to each other a bit more.
And I think it's also important for companies to not just pay lip service to these ideas. And so many companies do that just to try to help their bottom line. That's not enough.
But we're seeing that change. We're seeing that change.
Yes. So that's my pessimistic side.
Well, so we've heard that consumers can vote with their purchases.
Yep.
What else can they do? Any other quick tips to end?
Yeah, I mean, the power is in the dollar. You have the power. If you're going to purchase something, it's going to directly affect that business. So look at that business model. Look at their business ethics.
Not to mention, if you're an investor in any public companies on Wall Street, you can ask them, why isn't your board diverse? Why is there only one woman?
Yes.
Why is there no person of color? That matters.
Love it.
Tell them you care.
Yep, more conversations. Thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate it. Looks like we're out of time.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.